Well, I guess Heather is just going to be a few minutes late, so we're going to go ahead and
Recording in progress.
call the meeting to order. And first item is approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. You'll note there's some additions. We've got an item 3B added to the consent agenda, which is the Infrastructure Committee meeting minutes, draft minutes. Item 3E added to the consent agenda in the town manager's report is a update from the college on a process for helping with dealing with complaints. Added item of 5A, appointment of voting delegates for Vermont League of Cities and Towns annual meeting. And item 5B, the VLCT welcoming and engaging communities cohort invitation to apply. Are there any other amendments that anybody have requested?
Heather asked for some minor adjustments to the meeting minutes.
Yep.
And would you like me to read them off now? Or do you
Please.
want to okay. We have, first on line 30,
Oh, actually, wait a
36.
second. Hold on a sec.
Okay.
That would be the consent agenda,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Okay. So,
You're, okay.
all in
Sorry.
favor of approving the agenda with the addition of the 4 items, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye?
Aye.
Okay. Next item is approval of the consent agenda.
Moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded.
If John is here to speak to 5A, maybe we should pull that? Oh, sorry, the 3B,
Maybe under public comment.
3E. Yeah, but it's actually on the agenda, I don't know.
No, it's what's in there is the letter, copy of the letter.
Right.
Informing people, so he'll still have an opportunity to speak to what.
Okay.
We're accepting it into our,
Okay. That's fine, yeah, good. I won't pull it.
and now Heather did have some amendments to the minutes. Did we get a second on that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I did.
Okay.
First line 36, Heather wasn't present, so we need to update who did second the consent agenda motion.
Who did? Heather did.
Heather said that she did not because
Okay.
she was not here.
Okay,
At
who
that
did that
meeting.
then?
It must have been Lindsay,
Okay.
so
We'll fix it.
fix it. Second, the paragraph starting on line 262 regarding Peter Jetty refers to him on both lines 288 and 291, and on 291, Peter is referred to as she. Heather reports she doesn't know what the correct pronoun should be, but at least we can make it consistent, please. And finally, also please pass on to Beth, again, that I think she does an amazing job on the minutes. I have to work pretty hard to find anything to change. I think she accurately captured a very long meeting.
Nice.
Are there any other amendments to the consent agenda, comments on it?
I was just gonna say, I really appreciate the timeline for the budget, like having it, that's such a great addition.
It's coming up.
Yeah, is it ever?
Imminent.
But now we know it's coming and exactly
Yeah.
when, which helps.
Okay, so all in favor of approving the consent agenda with the minutes amendments, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed?
Aye.
Okay, yeah. Any opposed? None? So we're going to go to citizen comments, and I'll start with John. And he has comments on the letter that is in the packet now from the college.
2 minutes, right?
I'm sorry?
2 minutes, right?
Yes.
So at the last select board meeting, Derek Doucette expressed an interest in improving communications between townspeople who are neighbors of off-campus student housing. And so the next day, I actually sent him an email with a proposal of what the cover letter should look like, and an information packet that would include, the Middlebury Town noise ordinances, and then include contact information not only for the Middlebury Town Police, but also other disciplinary parties such as himself and Ritter. And neither of them responded. And then yesterday I found this, his proposed letter. And I find it insufficient a couple of ways. First of all, I assume this is a draft because I certainly didn't receive this in the mail.
How did you get this?
Off the website.
Okay.
Yeah. I made the highlights that you see here.
So you didn't receive it in the mail?
No, I did not. No. And so,
It's supposed to be mailed to all of the addresses that surround all the properties.
maybe this is a draft?
He had sent a draft, and then I'll have to check back with him, but I was told it was mailed to all of the properties.
I think for transparency, it would be good to ask the college to supply you a list of everyone they sent the letter to. Because I certainly didn't get it. And did
15
he,
seconds.
okay, and did he really send it out to residents? He might as well said, hey, townies. You know, it's kind of disrespectful.
2
So-
minutes.
Okay, thank you. That's it. Basically, I think instead of a form letter, it should be an information packet, individually addressed.
Okay.
We have a hand in the audience by Judy Weiger-Gross.
Okay.
Okay, Judy, you should be able to talk.
Hi, Judy. Can you hear us, Judy?
So how do I know I'm here? Well, I know I'm here, but how do you know I'm here?
I see your hand up. I have a list of attendees.
Okay, so I'm here.
You are here, Judy.
Okay, sorry, thank you.
Thank
That's
you.
all.
Yes, yes.
I'll put my hand down.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other hands up? None? Anybody else that's here for something? Chief?
Just wanted to give you an update on the status of dispatching, the issues we're having with the state getting out of the provision of dispatch support for us on the overnight shift and on weekends. I got an email Thursday in which they gave us a drop-dead date, which is October 1st. They will no longer handle any non-emergency calls. If they get a call that they deem is not an emergency, they've told everybody, give us a phone tree, we'll send it to your phone tree, and then you can deal with it at some other time. This is concerning to us because what is the definition of an emergency? I'm concerned about what a noise complaint is. They specifically said things about town ordinances they're not going to dispatch and they're not going to deal with. So we've been working on this. We're expanding our part-time dispatch staff, or trying to, for those who are interested in doing it, so that we can cover at least 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. on Sundays as well. So the busy hours for us will be covered, we hope. Our target is for later this fall to have that fully staffed. The problem comes after 10 at night. We've spoken just the other day, since I mentioned this to Kathleen, with the supervisor of the State Police Dispatch up in Williston. Our calls are now being routed to Westminster, where they've been, and they're in a bit of a crisis there. They've changed that. Our calls are now being handled in Williston, so we spoke to the supervisor there. He did assure us that he would take care of these calls. We'll have to do our own record keeping and a lot of that stuff that's normally done by a dispatcher, but we should not be getting any drop calls, at least for the time being, so they will cover us. So if we get a noise complaint at 2 in the morning or 1 in the morning on a Friday night or a Saturday night, we will probably most likely get dispatched for that rather than having to put that into a voice message system. This is a problem all over the state. What we've had here is the governor came out with his, I don't know what he called this thing, his 10 points on improving public safety. One of those was support for local agencies. I don't need troopers patrolling Middlebury. We've got enough of our own officers. We need help with dispatching. The grants that they put out, yes, Andy?
Is anyone, do you know of what organizations are interested in doing regional dispatch?
There was a grant application that was put out. You had a month to put your application in to do that. The problem is, we had initially considered that. I don't have 30 days to come up and develop a program. You got to get engineering on communication equipment,
Sure.
telephone equipment, all that stuff to get that in, personnel. This is a 6-month to a 1-year project, not a 30-day project.
Yeah.
So primarily, this has been done by agencies that are already doing some kind of regional dispatch. Shelburne, Hartford Police Department, there's a few others around the state that are already doing that. And they put in for that grant. The grant was supposed to be $11 million. Only $4.5 million is going to these agencies. So it's woefully short of what it really needs to be. So I don't know how that's going to work.
In theory, we could contract with Shelburne for off-hours dispatch?
Shelburne is full, and they're having their own staff crisis there. We would have to look to contract with somebody that's going to do that. But right now, these grants are going out. They'll get the grant money, or they'll get the grant awards in the end of September.
Yeah,
So we
seems
don't know
ridiculous.
who's out there to contract with. Right now, at least 10 of these dispatch centers are already at capacity. To get this grant, you've got to show that you've got X amount of agencies that you're dispatching for. So as you know, we also dispatch for the fire department, and we tone out the fire department. So the concern of mine is that we are at least in a position where we can handle this. I think in a year or 2 years, we may be able to get into an arrangement with somebody else. I've been looking at Rutland, if the sheriff down there decides to re-energize the kind of dispatch system he had. But he's not doing 24 hours either. So right now, it's a lot of I don't knows, holding our breath on this. But I know in the short term, at least, our calls will be handled. We're hiring extra people. These are not budgeted expenses we're going to have, but I've got to have somebody there on Sunday. Weekends are the days we get a lot of non-emergency stuff. Somebody coming in for a burn permit, somebody getting a VIN verification on their car, dumping off unwanted prescriptions. We get a lot of that walk-in and people coming in. Also on the weekends, we get a lot of people that need some shelter. We've sheltered people on weekends inside the police station. We can't do that if the doors are closed.
Sure.
So we want to at least be able to provide that kind of emergency service until they can be sent someplace else. So I've kind of taken the bold step of trying to hire part-time dispatchers for those Sunday shifts. We'll see where this goes a year from now.
Wow.
Is MREM still dispatching, or have they closed that down?
MREMS does, and I sent them the grant application. And I don't know if Kate was going to pursue it. They do a lot of, they're doing call service for some of the college. They're doing a lot of other types of dispatch. To get into police dispatch, it's a whole different animal. You've got to be certified by the federal government.
Okay.
Your facility has to be inspected by the feds and the state to make sure that there's confidentiality of information that we have access to. There's a lot of stuff that goes on, and right now, I don't even know if they'd be the least bit interested in changing their facility to be able to comply with that.
Yeah.
But again, I sent it to Kate about a month ago. She seemed interested in going with that, so we'll wait and see. So right now, we're just kind of got our finger in the dike, and we'll see what happens
Yikes.
over the next year. We'll be here. We'll be answering the calls. We've got officers on 24/7. So we will be doing this somehow. It's the old magic wand thing. We got a problem, we'll figure out a way to fix it.
Yikes. Thanks for the update.
And if I can just to mention, if folks are having issues with college students that are noisy, please call us. Call us. Finding out a week later doesn't help. Finding out the next day doesn't. We have a reporting process with the college where we report these things to the college folks, names and addresses and things like that. So we really need to get on top of this at the start of the year. We had 3 events this weekend. not in the Pleasant Street area, Cross Street, Washington Street, with noise complaints, that we reported them on Monday morning to the college, and they will deal with the students there. We also have the landlord issue. We send them the landlord letter to have them kind of help mitigate the problem. So it's been successful in the past. But that's it for my happy news.
Do we have a hand by Fred Dunnington?
Excellent.
Okay.
I like your tie.
It's been a big help.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can, Fred.
Good evening. So in the select board minutes, lines 334 to 357, the select board, after the public hearing on the zoning, encouraged the Public Health and Safety Committee to look at updates in the noise ordinance and to strengthen it somehow. And with Tom Hanley right there as chair of the Public Health and Safety Committee, I haven't seen any agenda set for any meeting or any movement on this. And I spoke with Kathleen after the last meeting. She said she would reach out to Tom. I just wonder, what's the status of beefing up the noise ordinance as the residents quite emphatically expressed in the public hearing on the zoning?
I believe Tom has it on an upcoming Public Health and Safety Committee agenda.
Yeah, we'll get to it, Fred. First, we got to figure out what the problems are with the noise ordinance. If you remember that going through that years ago when we developed this ordinance, there was a lot of push and shove, as you were, as to how stringent we needed to do this, what the officers' roles actually would be, and we've been following that process. So we'd have to, I guess, figure out what exactly is the problem with the noise ordinance, and if there's something wrong with it, I need to hear about it, and I've not heard that.
Did you listen to any of the testimony on the select board hearings on the zoning where that was revealed quite extensively?
Not on the zoning hearing, no.
Okay. Well, thank you for responding. I'm just interested in following that issue since I drafted something for you, Tom, a few years ago about this, and I'm willing to help you work on it if you want.
Yeah, get a hold of me, Fred. We can talk about this.
Okay, thanks.
It was pointed out that Middlebury's noise ordinance is much more lenient than Burlington's, where they're both dealing with often college-age kids who are, yeah.
Yeah, Burlington specifically targets college-age kids with certain things. I don't know where that's going to go if anybody contested that ordinance. How do you pick on one group of people? And the noise ordinance applies to everybody.
Sure.
We get far more noise complaints in town than we do from students that are student involved. So we try to handle them all the same way.
Yeah. Look forward to that meeting.
Thanks, Chief. Yeah.
Thank you for listening. My name's Mike Farnsworth. I live on Exchange Street, down towards Greg's. And I get a lot of speeding going on. A lot of traffic problems in town. I talking to the chief earlier. And I would like to know what can be done about that.
Particularly on Exchange Street?
Well, that's where I see it.
Yeah.
I mean, on the way here, I saw almost an accident on Seymour Street. I saw a guy coming up Frog Hollow the wrong way. It just, it's constant.
Mm-hmm.
And it's getting worse. So I would like to see what can be done. I don't know. I'd like to see tickets handed out, but I know he's strapped for help, and I understand that. But there's a lot of speeding going on.
Yeah, my road claims to be 25 miles an hour, and a
Okay.
lot of people come up to that intersection at 40 miles an hour.
People don't stop at lights anymore.
Sure.
Roll through them, stop signs. I'm not supposed to say this, but a relative of mine got hit in the crosswalk on Elm Street the other morning. It was dark, but still. I don't believe that person got a ticket or anything happened to that person. I don't know how you can hit somebody and not get a ticket, but I don't know. But I'd like to see something done. I'm sure I'm not the only one who's
No, we've
complained
had,
about this.
we've had a number of, there's, adding that to the list, there's probably 6 streets that have,
At
in the
least.
last year at least.
One officer, they had an incident on Exchange Street, and the officer came back and talked to me, and they put one of those light speed signs up that I guess it records, he said. And Tom was telling me the history of it, but within a week, the battery was dead, I guess, and the sign went away, and I never heard anything else about it, so I don't know if you can get...
Chief, when those are up, do they record the number of speeding incidents and how many are over the speed limit and how fast they're going?
Yeah, we have one that we use for traffic studies. We put it up with the lights off, with the display off. It only records traffic going one way, so you've got to do one side of the street, then you've got to put it back and do the other side of the street. Batteries don't last that long. We usually get 5 to 7 days out of a set of batteries in there, and then we have to take it down and charge it up. But we do get the regular traffic data out of that. In our budget thing coming up, we've got a proposal to buy another set of road tubes, which are far more accurate. They'll do much better studies. They're not, the radar gets interference with it, and they're good to give you a thumbnail sketch of what's going on and what the 85th percentile speed and some of the data, but they're not as good as the road tubes.
And do you have a sense, is the amount of speeding going up, or are we just more cognizant of it right now?
No, the speeding has gone up. I mean, the guys are running some heavy speed enforcement in August, and in many places it was a target-rich environment. I mean, they were stopping a lot of cars and writing a number of tickets in different areas of town. But again, you can only, the 2 people on duty at any one time, you can only commit so much time to that. I mean, you just get called to other things. So we know it. We know the issues that are out there. We're trying to get the boxes out as best as we can. 2 of them are out right now. One's collecting data, and one's got a visible display in East Middlebury. Not the permanent one. There's another one on Ozzie Road that we put up the other day.
When we talk about capital budget next month and infrastructure, can we think about adding some more of those boxes?
I've put in the budget proposal that I've already done, just waiting for you to say when I turn it in, for 2 more of those radar driver feedback signs, the type they have in Bristol.
Are those the ones with the message on them?
Yeah, you can put a message on them. You can change the message. They're about
Great.
$4,000 a piece.
So, Chief, one thing I think about is, can we do ticketing without an officer present? Can we get a plate and a picture of the driver and say, hey, you were going 50 and a 25?
No, you can't do, Vermont doesn't allow that.
Okay.
You've got to actually identify the driver. Other states have a prima facie law, they have, like the radar cameras, the stoplight cameras.
Yeah.
Where you don't need to know who the driver is. The owner of the car is prima facie the operator.
Right.
And they can generate tickets.
Okay.
Vermont, you have to stop and specifically identify the driver.
Gotcha. Thanks.
I understand that they're strapped for help and they only have 2 officers on, but is there a reason we can't have like sheriffs do stuff?
We have to contract with them, don't we?
I mean, other towns do.
I think we'd rather explore internally what we can do with, I do believe that where we've had the signs up, the monitoring signs, that has contributed to slowing some traffic down. We just don't have enough of them
Yep,
out.
well, it's a start.
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind seeing tickets handed out, but
Well, when we can, I'm sure we will, but.
I mean, if there's only 2 officers on, they got other stuff to do. Those are just a few incidents that I've seen.
Sure.
You're not gonna do anything with the speed sign about somebody going the wrong way on a street or almost getting in an accident down, on a 25-mile-an-hour road. That's not gonna do anything for that.
We have one of the more complicated traffic patterns of any town I've ever been in. The number of cars that go, continue, yeah, on 7 down the one way is, I see a significant number of those
Talking about from
Every
South
season.
Pleasant?
Yeah.
Cutting across, yeah.
Mistakes happen. I
Sure.
don't mind, a mistake is a mistake, but
Yeah.
a lot of it's negligence and willfully doing it. I mean,
Sure.
Well, we'll take it under advisement.
Thank you very
and,
much.
I appreciate you coming tonight.
thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, Mike.
We have a hand by Judy Weicker-Gross.
Okay,
Okay, Judy.
the person just spoke. I don't know his name, but thank you.
Mike Farnsworth.
Excellent. It's an issue. It's an issue in East Middlebury along Route 125. It's an issue on Schoolhouse Hill Road. I mean, the speed limit there is 25. And I must admit, I don't necessarily follow the speed limit, but I'm not going 60. It's a problem. And there are ways to address this. There are traffic calming strategies to deal with this. And I think that's what is needed. And as we are reworking, in a sense, Route 125, planting additional trees, by planting roadside gardens, by planting, doing bump outs, there are ways to calm traffic. There are ways to attract people's attention to the size of the road that will slow them down. And now those need to be employed before somebody gets hurt. I, for one, have no problem entering a crosswalk with a car speeding towards that crosswalk. But there are many times that people just stop and drivers keep going by. That's not okay. That's not how we do things here. You enter a crosswalk and a driver stops. You go to a stop sign and you come to a complete stop. I mean, even my own kid calls them stoptional. How many people refer to stop signs as stoptional? Given my observations, many. It's not okay.
Well, I don't want gardens planted, I want speed stop.
Okay, Judy, 30 seconds. Do you have anything else?
I'm good, thanks.
Okay, thanks, Judy.
I just hope you can't see me eating.
Wouldn't it help to keep the Middlebury police in Middlebury instead of down Route 7 a lot? We're in Salisbury 2-3 nights a week.
I doubt that,
Well, can we take the picture?
if you would. I've been down there a couple times to help the state police on a backup.
They're down there running traffic down on Route 7. Chasing cars.
Okay, we're going to move on to 5A, appointment of voting delegates for the Vermont League of Cities and Towns Annual Meeting, Property and Casualty Intermunicipal Fund, and VLCT Employment Resources and Benefits Annual Meetings. Each year, we are asked to nominate someone to, or have someone appointed by the board to vote for the town as a voting delegate. In the past, we've had Kathleen. She's willing to do it again this year. Is there anybody else who would like to do it?
I would like to do it, but I'm unable to this year.
So another year,
Another year, for sure.
okay?
It's a good time.
So,
On the radar screen for next year.
Kathleen will remember.
Yes, she will. She has a very long memory.
since Kathleen is willing to do it, I should move to appoint Town Manager Kathleen Ramsey as Middlebury's voting delegate to the VLCT annual meeting, the passive annual meeting, and the VERB annual meeting.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Okay. Next is VLCT welcoming and engaging communities cohort invitation to apply. They're inviting municipalities to apply for participation in the VLCT welcoming and engaging communities cohort as noted on the VLCT website. It says the VLCT welcoming and engaging communities cohort is a partnership with Abundant Sun, a Vermont cultural transformation consultancy, which offers municipal leaders participation in the firm's ethical performance improvement campaign. The EPIC journey is a strategic methodology based on data and science aimed at catalyzing organizations to build better cultures from within. Participants will join about a dozen Vermont municipalities on a 6-month journey, including 8 2-hour virtual workshops on topics that include equality, equity, diversity, and inclusion, employee engagement and client service, and data analytics and building strategy. The sessions are paired with an opportunity for municipalities to collect key inclusion and belonging metrics by surveying elected officials, appointed officials, and paid staff. VLCT will fund participation for up to 15 municipalities, and each municipality needs to have 2 officials enrolled in the program. Enrolled officials will be asked to commit 6 months to the program, which will include an in-person cohort meeting on October 7th at VLCT's Town Fair, followed by 7 2-hour virtual ethical performance improvement campaign meeting sessions. Our deadline is this Thursday.
Wow.
Do we have 2 people who would be interested and able to do this? Has anybody on senior town staff, or are you interested in it?
I would participate if someone from the select board wanted to join me.
Do we have a schedule yet for when the meetings are? No.
It just said like 6 months, January to April.
Right, 8 2-hour virtual workshops that are
7.
synchronous?
7.
7.
Every other week from January through April.
Yeah, that's all it said so far.
I'm willing to consider it, Kathleen.
Yeah, and I could potentially do it depending on when those are.
That's the issue.
Yeah.
Okay.
Depends on
Okay.
when they are.
So it sounds like we have 2 potential candidates. So if the board wanted to endorse our participation, I could fill out the application and draft up a letter of support.
Okay. Then we'd need a motion.
I move to sign a select board letter of interest and submit an application to VLCT's Welcoming and Engaging Communities cohort.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye? Okay. Next is nominations to fill a vacancy on the select board. During our board members' concerns at our last meeting, you remember Esther resigned because she was unable to find housing in Middlebury and was moving to Bridport. In accordance with 24 VSA Section 127, subparagraph D, the town advertised for candidates interested in completing Esther's term, which expires in March 2023. To date, resident Gary Baker, along with Rebecca Hanley, Isabel Gogarty, Judy Wigger-Groves, and Rain Walker Winterpainter have all entered letters of interest for the select board position. Our tradition is that we would nominate all five, and then at the, and if they're here, give them an opportunity to speak, and then at the next board meeting, appoint one of the five. So I did see Gary here, and everybody who's here, if you, one at a time, want to just introduce yourselves, and so I know there's a couple people here I have not met, so.
So we have all five candidates, either
Yeah.
in the room or online. So I'd suggest we start in the room, then go online
That'd be great.
and alternate.
Hi, I'm Gary Baker.
2 minutes, Gary?
2 minutes?
Yep.
I've been on a lot of committees in town. I've been serving my town, whether it be New Haven or Middlebury, for over 40 years in various roles. On select boards, on the select board here for 4 years, Planning Commission in New Haven, Planning Commission here, Development Review Board here, many of those as chair. I just volunteered to fill the slot until March. I don't think I'll run in March, but I may, depending on who else is running. If I think they'd be a good selectman or woman, I'm not going to run against them. But if I don't, I will.
He's also
Okay.
currently serving on the infrastructure committee.
Yes.
Thank you.
Rebecca?
I'm going to promote Judy Wagner-Rose. There we go. Hi, Judy.
Hey,
Now you see yourself, Judy.
I'm sorry, what?
Now you can see you're in the select board meeting.
I can't hear you.
Can you see yourself now?
So, the first thing I'd like to say is it's Weiger-Gross. And I've dealt with mispronunciations of my name since, like, kindergarten. And I'm very sensitive to that. So I used to tell my kids at school, it's Weiger, like tiger, but a W. Just saying. So I think I'm probably the worst possible candidate that you can choose because I will be a pain in the behind. I am passionate about the environment. I am passionate about all individuals in our community, not just some. And in that regard, I will work for all of them. But at the same time, I guess I have to say I will work hardest for the environment and the creatures that live there. Because without them, this community cannot exist. Without our natural resources, without our water supply, and I mean, so many letters have been, I'm running out of time, aren't I?
30 seconds, Judy.
I have 30 seconds?
Yes.
Okay. And I think the board absolutely must consider those environmental consequences, those environmental issues. And as a member of the board, should you be so foolhardy as to happy join, that's what I will fight for. It won't be about, the elite group in our community, which we all know exists. It'll not be about just purely economic development. It will be about the environment that supports us.
Thank
And
you.
again, without that, we're nothing. Sorry, time's up.
Thank you. Okay, we have Isabel. Sorry.
Oh, thanks.
Excellent.
All right.
We appreciate that.
Do you
Thank
teach at the middle school?
I do. I'm Rebecca's teacher.
Oh! Maybe we'll see you tomorrow night then.
Perfect. Yep. Open house.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Hi, everyone. My name is Isabel Gogarty. I am so honored to be here to explain why I just get so ecstatic about being a connection maker in our community for all of the organizations, all the small businesses, all the local farms that we have here, and connect them to the community that I work with in the Addison Central School District. I am also here tonight to talk about why I'm ready to talk on a larger scale about really important topics that may be bigger than my work that I currently do on the Parks and Recreation Committee. Yet, these are topics that impact my work every single day as a wellness educator at Middlebury Union Middle School. I'm ready to talk collaboratively about affordable housing as a renter, which I know 40% of Middlebury residents are. I'm ready to talk about the need for affordable childcare and why it's so vital to keeping and ensuring that adults get to live, work, and play here in Middlebury. I am ready to also honor the work that my mom's colleague, Esther Charleston, gave to this board. She brought amazing power to this board, and she brought a really loud voice of representation to Middlebury residents on this board, and I hope to do half of the work that she did. I think our work and our ongoing work can drive from encouraging people to come here, plant their roots, and grow here. And I think that
30
there's
seconds.
a way to do that in an accessible and appealing way, and also a fiscally responsible way. So again, I'm really honored to be here to talk about myself, answer any questions, and I'm just really excited to take this next step. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
We have Rebecca Hanley coming in, and if Rain Walker Winter Painter is in the audience on another person's computer, would you please raise your hand as I don't see you on the list. Hi, Rebecca.
You're muted.
You.
You're on mute, Rebecca.
Hi, sorry. My name is Rebecca Hanley. I moved back to Middlebury in 2017, but I was a resident here in the 90s and all throughout my youth and my teenage years. Since I have moved back to Middlebury, I've been a member of a few different committees and local organizations and have really immersed myself into this community. I have children in the Middlebury school system, and because of that, I've tried to make a huge investment in this town. And I think even though it's a temporary term, I feel like filling a vacant term would be a good way of helping me to get my feet wet. I've been wanting to be a part of the select board for a little bit now, and so I think this is a great opportunity. It's definitely will help me listen to the concerns of the community and open my eyes to things that I haven't been privy to previously. And I think it's a great way to be able to give a voice to people that can't speak, and just try to make the best decisions for the town that are as beneficial as possible for everyone involved.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Rebecca.
Was-
One last call for Rain Walker. I don't see him online or in the audience.
Okay. All right, would somebody care to make the motion?
I'll move,
No, go for it.
oh, I'll move to nominate Gary Baker, Rebecca Hanley, Isabel Gogarty, Judy Weiger, Grow, and Ren Walker, window painter, to complete Esther Charleston's term on the select board, expiring in March 2023.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And Karen,
So,
Okay.
sorry, before we jump, we're gonna have some time in the next meeting to talk about this a little more. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
talk about,
Candidates.
Candidates, yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, there you are. Hi, Karen.
Hi, how are you?
We also have Phil Summers here from the Chamber of Commerce.
Karen told me to be here, so I'm here. She's
I totally left you out to dry, I'm sorry.
It's all right, Karen. Hi, everybody. I'm Phil Summers. I'm with the Chamber of Commerce. And I've met a few of you, but most of you not, so.
Welcome to the
Nice to meet you.
community.
Good to meet you.
And I'm one of those 40% of Middlebury people that rent, so glad to be here.
Welcome.
So Karen, you want to start it off, or you
Sure,
want me
I
to?
can, yeah, absolutely. So you guys received our permit application. Really excited about this. This is a joint event put on by the BMP and the Chamber. This is the first time in the time that I've been with the organization that we've ever partnered with the Chamber on an event of this size. So that in and of itself is really exciting. And we have a lot of really fun things that are being planned for this event. So it's going to feature, with your approval, 75 vintage cars on the streets of, on Main Street in downtown, as well as vendors, food, live music, lots of kids' activities and games. We're planning some raffles and giveaways and ties to local shopping. So it really looks like it's shaping up to be a really fun event for Middlebury. And we're planning on it for October 16th, which is a Sunday. And our request to you is to be able to close Main Street from just below the Seymour Street intersection to Mill Street. So we've maintained access to both of those roads. And the closure would be between the two. So Bakery Lane would be affected, but because you can access it from the other side, that doesn't limit the accessibility there. So we're just here to answer your questions and have a chat about what this means, what it looks like, and any concerns that folks have. And I would just throw out that we have chatted with Dave Shaw, Chief Hanley, Emruns has been notified. The two churches that have been impacted, that will be impacted, have been notified, and we're in conversations with them, and Tri-Valley.
You said two churches. There are three. If there's a third one, I don't know which two you.
Yes, you're right, Lindsay. The Merchants Row one will be as well, and I did not think of that. We've been chatting with St. Stephen's and the Congregational Church.
One of the things I'd point out is that Main Street will be where we will park the vintage cars on one side of the street so that pedestrians can walk up and down the other side to see them, you know, so it's a pretty cool experience. It's done in some of the Hudson Valley river towns, very similar, and gets tremendous amount of attendance at these. But I think what's really important is that it's not just a car show. The car show is what we call a loss leader. It's to get people in who might not come into town otherwise, but also to get the community to come in and experience something that they probably haven't in downtown Middlebury before.
Do you expect 75 cars to be there?
Oh, yeah.
It's confirmed, or?
Yeah, as you may know, we've done car shows for years up in Bristol, so we've got an extensive contact list of car owners, and we just put up the registration list today, and we've already got them coming in hard and fast. We expect to have to turn people away.
How broad are you expecting to advertise this? What's the area where you're trying to draw people from?
Yeah, so we'll be advertising on the radio and in the Addy Independent, and then all the rest of the advertising will be local in terms of flyers and street signs and things like that. But the whole county, certainly, and we might carry into Chittenden somewhat and Rutland County with the radio advertising and just word of mouth as well.
Sure.
And social media.
Oh, yeah, can't forget that.
Can I?
Yeah.
First of all, I think this is very cool, and I'm very excited. I'm not even that into cars, but it's something different, and I will go look at them all 75 of them. I'm wondering, are you going to have volunteers helping people find parking or signage, or it's the perpetual headache?
Agreed. Yes. And I have actually been thinking I've been thinking a lot about parking, and I'm reminding myself of the years that we did the Chili Fest and how somehow, some way people find a place to park in Middlebury, right? Like, we had blocked off all of Main Street and all of Merchants Row for the Chili Festival. And, at the most, I think we ended up with 4,000 or 5,000 people in the downtown. And I never once heard a parking complaint in all of that time. So, unlike, say, a random Wednesday. But I will say that, we're certainly going to need to do some signage and some advanced communication for folks so that they know where to go for parking. We're talking about where vendors are going to park, where volunteers are going to park. So we're working on all of the logistics for all of that stuff right now.
Okay.
And it's going to be on a Sunday, so a lot of businesses will be closed, probably.
I'm hoping that the downtown businesses will remain open, and I have put out some communication to them already about this. But yes, there will be more businesses than on a Saturday that would be closed.
Yep.
Any other questions?
Yeah, what's been the response so far with the churches? Do they have any concerns? Are they supportive of the idea?
So the initial conversation that we had with St. Stephen's, the Reverend had mentioned moving to a Zoom service, but I haven't gotten confirmation in this last round of communication with him. I sent an email on Friday, so I'm waiting to hear back on what their plans are. Congregational Church, Pastor Andy reached out. He was wanting to understand specifically where we're closing the street, specifically, if any parking would be impacted, if noise would be a factor, so music and things like that. So we talked through, the live music will start at 11 in the gazebo. And he said, while he can hear it on the Thursday night concerts, it's really not something that he's worried about in terms of the noise, and their service will likely be done at 11. So it sounded like we were set there, but certainly made it clear to both that I've talked to and Will to the third that, we recognize this as an intrusion. We did originally hope for the Saturday before, but there's actually a wedding on the green that day. So we weren't able to do that Saturday. So, we typically don't do events on Sundays, partly for this reason. So, we're just trying to work with them and understanding that these are some parameters that, are not ideal, but trying to figure out, again, if the music is an issue, can we back up the timing of that or change the location? So we're just, we're really trying to understand what their primary concerns are and then see how we can work with them. But it sounded like the Congregational Church, I think, is set. And like I said, St. Stephen's originally said Zoom. We'll see if that ends up being the case. I think for them, the accessibility piece is going to be tough, especially for the later. And I think they have a 10:30 service. And so not being able to park directly in front, I think, will be hard for, especially since they're older members of their congregation. So I'm still working on all of that communication.
Sounds great. Very excited.
Any other questions or comments? Pleasure of the board.
I move to approve a public assemblage permit for the car show and Fall Fest on October 16th, 2022, including the requested closure of Main Street from 7:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. pending confirmation that the issues noted in Chief Hanley's public safety review have been satisfactorily addressed.
Second.
Okay. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye? What do you got?
You can't really hear when the board speaks from over here. You hear from when they talk on the video here, but when the board says something, it's hard to hear back here. Is there a way you could speak through the speakers so you can hear it here?
The speaker doesn't actually help
Right.
here. It only helps online, but we can speak louder.
Okay, because it's hard to hear it.
Thank you.
For one, I'm very thankful that the Chamber is actually participating in a local event here in Middlebury. I think it's been a while since we've had something the Chamber has done. So welcome to the community, and thank you for the leadership on that, if
Thank you.
that's your initiative to work with BMP on this.
Thank you. Kudos to Karen, because it was the first thing she brought up in the first board meeting I was in, that we needed to do something in Middlebury, so.
I second
I
that.
don't want to take all the
You all know
credit.
I don't miss an opportunity.
Thank you,
That's
everybody.
great.
Nice
Thank
to
you
meet
for coming.
Okay, thanks, Phil.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Karen.
Next is a discussion of the timeline for amending the charter to allow the select board to appoint a town treasurer and warn the first public hearing on charter change for September 27th, if we decide to do it on the general election. On your timeline,
Yes, it's not going to work out for the general election.
it isn't going to work out.
There are two required public hearings before the select board can warn it for a vote. So this would be lining up to take place at the
March
Town
20.
meeting.
March town meeting.
Okay. And how does that work if would we be running an election
You would be.
parallel with the charter change?
Wow.
But the,
And the charter change needs to be approved by the legislature anyway,
right.
so.
And then once it is approved by the legislature, it becomes effective immediately, and the select board could appoint from that point forward. So we would have to make it known that it might be a short-lived
Very short.
experience.
Short-term, yeah.
If anyone seeks election, other
Yikes.
than our current treasurer, Beth Dow. So since I drew up this timeline and the draft charter amendment with the proposed first hearing on November 8th, it came to our attention that we will have to have a special town meeting and vote on the Vermont gas systems easement at the general election. And generally, the select board holds the special town meeting, informational meeting on that election the night before. So that would be November 7th. So you may want to switch your meeting date to November 7th so that you could do the special town meeting and to have this public hearing on the proposed charter change, and free you all up to book the polls on November 8th.
And that meeting will be at 7-ish, we think.
So that's a Monday night. Okay.
So that's what I'm thinking, and I'll, if that's agreeable to you, I will make the change to this charter notice and bring it to you at your next meeting for warning and signature.
November 7th. So instead of on the 8th, we'll move our meeting to the 7th.
Yes.
How long does it typically take for the legislature to approve a charter change? Because they'll be coming to the end of a session, right?
The session usually goes into May, so they'll have an opportunity to act on it.
This, towns without a charter are already authorized by law to do this.
Oh.
So it won't be something new for them
Okay.
to approve. It's more of a
So we could
standard.
potentially get it approved by the
Yes.
legislature before the end of the term.
We had,
in 2023.
In 2015, when we eliminated the position of auditor, that was in late April, and they were able to handle that session.
Okay.
Ross has got something.
Yeah, hi. I was surprised to hear that you're going to be going on with the vote on Vermont Gas easement. My understanding is that Vermont Gas, it ended up, they didn't really need the easement. After all, they found a way to hook up the stone mill. So what, should I request that the petition that I turned in be revoked so that, I mean, what would be the point of having the vote?
Can they pull their petition?
We have an opinion from council that once a citizen's petition has been submitted, the select board shall hold a vote on it regardless of the situation. And that it's been recommended that we, the board, go forward with the election.
Well,
that-
at least we could have a good discussion, even though it'll be a meaningless election, I'm sorry. And you can't hold it at the same time as another election? You have to have a special town meeting for it?
You have to have an informational meeting before the vote.
But the vote can happen when...
We're
another
doing it at the
okay.
general election.
Okay, so it's not going to be a whole special election at least?
right.
Okay. Okay.
Do you need anything, is everybody tracking that timeline and good with it? Are we
I'm good with
supportive
7th.
of that? And is the board supportive of moving to an appointed position versus an elected position? I mean, we've talked about this a little bit, but just want to make sure. Do you need anything from us, Kathleen?
I'll bring the revised warning to your next meeting.
Okay.
Right.
Dan, you've been patiently waiting outside. We're ready for you.
And I'm also going to promote our incoming Director of Public Works Planning, Emily Sherrington.
Hey.
Fantastic.
She here?
She is.
Online.
Oh, online. Perfect.
Good evening.
Good evening, Dan.
Okay. The first item up for discussion and approval request is for a contract for Bakery Lane Project Engineering for Otter Creek Engineering. This is projected to be one of 2 projects we will, excuse me, try to undertake with ARPA funds. More on that in a bit, but this is for the Bakery Street, the Bakery Lane project. Starts here at Main Street and goes down to the past the Haymaker Bun Company. It involves improvements to the existing sanitary pump station down at the bottom of the hill, the force main coming up the street, the gravity sewer going down the street, the water main that's from Main Street down to the fire hydrant past the Haymaker Bun building, and then addressing some stormwater issues, try to incorporate some kind of pedestrian space for people to walk on, and solve some of the drainage issues along the sides of the building. So there's a lot of pieces and parts. I've walked the site with some staff from the Wastewater Department and Robert Clark from Otter Creek Engineering, and they've submitted a proposal to us to start the engineering process. And this is for amount of $45,500. The work would happen over the next few months, and then we'd get a opinion of probable cost, and then a schedule on when we could proceed. So way forward. So I'm requesting the board to approve that engineering agreement.
Are you anticipating a sidewalk down Bakery Lane? Is there space for?
We're trying to incorporate
Protected pedestrian.
a raised, maybe a raised asphalt area with striping or something, depending on how the grades work out, to give people more of a place that appears that they should walk on.
A little protected, yeah.
Rather than down the middle of the road.
Sure.
But we'll see.
It may not necessarily really be protected, just maybe more
Defined.
of a,
Visible.
defined,
Channel the pedestrian
try to
traffic in the one
encourage
spot.
Sure.
Yeah.
walking in a particular area.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll have to see what the design comes back. I mean, obviously space is an issue there, so.
Sure.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Any questions here?
Are we, for the actual work, are you aiming for next summer?
We could do that.
Okay. And what will that mean for the parking? Like,
Well,
what will the damage be in terms of time?
Yeah.
Spots missing.
We're going to have to work that out with the businesses.
Okay.
The parking that's downhill around the curve
Mhm.
from that is private land, private.
The one that's by the house, between the house and
Yeah, yeah,
Mr. Ops?
yeah.
Okay.
So there is no way to do this other than inconveniencing people. So we're going to have to work with them or take some of our public parking spots down here and use that for staging.
Mhm.
So there's pipe and material and stone and removal can happen, so. We're also looking at, as far as the sanitary force main goes, right now it comes up the hill, it comes in front of the theater, and goes around towards Park Street and through that stone wall structure and down to Mill Street, and we're thinking about just boring right underneath Main Street and eliminating that long path. So it's part of the look-see, see if we can get that done.
I think you're optimistic, Dan, that we'll get that done next summer. He is optimistic.
retired,
He's
yeah.
very optimistic in his.
He's gonna bring his lawn chair.
Countdown here.
He's feeling good about it. Any other questions of Dan?
We have a hand by Fred Dunnington.
Hi, Fred.
Hi. So the select board accepted a master plan for the downtown that showed some green infrastructure for streets like Bakery Lane. And I wonder, I myself wondered how practicable some of those green infrastructure things were for such a narrow urban street like Bakery Lane is. And I wondered if Jan or Dan or Emily would comment on whether you looked at that and concurred with that, or what you think about the green infrastructure things that the select board adopted.
I think there's very limited space, obviously, for that. Emily and I looked at the bottom of the hill, if you will, where there's a storm basin that goes into Otter Creek. It's a pretty small area. I'm not sure how much we can do there, but this is going to be part of the process.
I think some of the green infrastructure that we looked at in the master plan was more around Park Street area, though, wasn't it?
There was a piece of,
yeah.
on that stone wall area.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Conceptually, it was to where it fits. I can see this is a pretty tight corridor, and you've got businesses along that corridor.
One of the things we want to solve is in the heavy rains, something like today, goes up against the building of the Haymaker Bun Company. We're trying to get that solved. And over the years, they've tried a few options, so.
I'll move to award a contract to Otter Creek Engineering for pre-bid engineering services for the Bakery Lane reconstruction project at a total cost of $45,500.
Second.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous.
Okay, thank you. Second item tonight is a brief discussion on probable cost for South Street project. Again, this is a probable ARPA project, ARPA-funded project. South Street was first started as a project in 2014. There's been 4 previous projects. This would be the last one to complete the street. What we're looking at is doing water main replacement from Main Street down to Chipman Park, down to Porterfield Road. Sanitary sewer would go from Main Street almost to Chipman Park South. Storm sewer mostly between Chipman Park North and Main Street. There's a section of sanitary and storm sewer that goes between South Street and what we call South Main Street, which is a couple hundred feet south of the signal at Academy and Main Street. That's kind of what we call South Main Street. Anyway, we've been working with Jamie Simpson on just trying to get some ballpark numbers for what this project might cost. Highway share was roughly estimated at $720,000. $500. Water is at $412,000. Sanitary sewer is at $500,000. And the highway includes the road, curb line, paving, and storm sewer. And these do not include engineering, contract administration or inspection services. So what we're trying to do is get an idea, does this fit in the money that the board has talked about allocating for an ARPA project, and it does. You have to recall, too, that this is going to be a multi-year project, at least 2, I would think. We have to be very cognizant of, the traffic and the hospital traffic and the residents and so on and so forth. So within that 2 years, you're also going to see 2 years' worth of highway capital improvement funds available to complete the project. So in other words, it's doable. Water is going to be fine with the ARPA funds you've talked about, and sanitary is also going to be okay. So I just wanted to bring those figures to you to see if you had any thoughts. Yes, no, heads up, go ahead or whatever.
Dan, one thing I wonder as we're replacing our aging water infrastructure is this a time when it makes sense to think about burying the above-ground utilities?
It can be a conversation with the power company. I'm not sure, I don't have a picture in my head on how that is on South Street. I think it's on the east, it'd be the west side.
Okay.
Can have a conversation. Yeah.
And what was the figure that we had when somebody's asked to vote for? Was it? It's just, we had a figure. I was testing Kathleen's excellent memory.
I was thinking $100,000 a poll or something like that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I thought it was
So-
for just a regular poll.
Because we get that request a lot, like,
Sure.
can we bury in the utilities?
Yeah.
We can, but it's pretty,
At a cost.
it costs, it's pretty expensive. So every poll, $100,000. And that was probably prior to the current market conditions as well.
Prior to the 50% increase in
Yeah.
all construction costs.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So while we're looking for Chief Hanley's magic wand, we should also be looking for that money tree as well.
Yeah. Well, I was just thinking that if you're already not doing traffic, you've already got the excavating tools there, there's some cost that might be able to be combined in those two projects. Anyway, yeah, just wanted to make sure that it had been considered.
We already are considering some traffic calming for that was in the original set of plans, correct, Dan?
Yeah.
Jamie's reviewing what was originally designed. and-
Some bump outs at the crosswalks. I think there's 3 crosswalks along there and some bump outs that could fit with a storm sewer, flow line.
Nice.
Yeah.
Where does this fit on the prioritization of the infrastructure committee on all the different projects you're looking at?
Well, I don't remember exactly where it fits, but this has been an open item, like Dan said, since 2014. When the original scope of the project was large enough that it was hard to fund it as one. So we've been doing it pieces since then. So it would be good to finish that road and redo it. As you recall, wasn't last year, it was the year before, we did a skim coat of paving to sort of get us some time on the condition of the pavement on that road, but it's due.
And I just need to add too that I submitted South Street, the sanitary portion is a combined sewer overflow project to CWSRF, that's the Clean Water State Revolving Fund. And I mentioned just a little bit ago, sanitary roughly 500,000, they're gonna fund about $640,000 for this project.
That's new.
We got to keep the extra.
Yeah, no.
So we are separating the sanitary and storm sewers as part of this?
There are some places where we believe the storm sewer is connected to the sanitary. And so,
great.
Basically, the sanitary is going to be done at no cost.
Yeah, neat.
Yeah.
And some of the work we've done on that road prior has already done some work on separating those
Sure.
Related to the combined sewer overflow work.
Okay, are there any other questions? If not, I'll have
Have
them
a
go on
hand
to.
by Fred Dunnington.
Hi, sorry to add so much to this meeting. I spent a lot of time with Public Works Committee meetings on South Street at the time of the Eastview project. And from that, I remember how passionately people on South Street feel about traffic calming. And looking at the Public Works Committee minutes, lines 98 through 100, where it was said that we shouldn't spend too much money on this because there's so many other shoots in town and people have come to the select board for about speeding concerns. I think it's important to recognize that all of the traffic that comes through South Street comes through a 13-foot wide splitter island at the roundabout. And for a 30-foot wide road, a mile long down to the hospital, you can put some splitter islands in at crosswalks that would effectively physically control traffic speeding and not impede ambulances. I would implore you to not just do this as an add-on, as a bid alternate, but to integrate it as part of the design. And I've come to learn that the people in South Street feel passionately about traffic calming, and it could set an example for other areas. So I hope you can program it that way. Thank you.
Fred, how much does that complicate plowing?
It doesn't seem to stop plowing in the roundabout at Court Street, does it?
Thank you, Fred.
Let's move on to the wastewater treatment facility discussion.
Sure. So Vermont Gas Systems had offered many months ago to hire a consulting engineer to look at what we might do with the biogas product from the wastewater treatment plant upgrade, if you will. We're certainly looking at an anaerobic digestion for the biosolids, as opposed to what we have now. That will greatly reduce the amount of sludge, if you will, biosolids that we produce. So we're definitely going to go with an anaerobic digester. The question that we'll be discussing over the next few months is going to be, what do we do with that gas? So I believe you all got a copy of the Forcer Consulting Engineers report. I would just like to point out a couple things that, if you haven't read it, but when you do, hopefully, you will remember these few points. On page 6, there's some talk about alternatives. I just want to point them out tonight. One is electricity from the using a generator powered by that gas would be returned to the electrical grid. 2 is to use the renewable natural gas to pump into the Vermont Gas Systems pipeline. A third alternative is to use the biogas for at the plant for the process heat and the facility, the building's heat. Fourth alternative would be an option of 1 and 2 previously mentioned. Use biogas for process heat. In other words, you have to keep the little microorganisms in the digesters warm so they function properly. So process heat and then facility heat for the buildings. And then any excess biogas could go to the Vermont gas pipeline. So those are the the 4 alternatives. Those are on page 6. There's a little more detail about them on page 10, and instead of alternatives, they're called options. As you read through that, you'll see that there are the anaerobic digester is considered in each option. The difference is, what are you going to do with the gas? Mm-hmm. So I just wanted to point that out. And one more thing to kind of pay attention to is page 17 talks about payback. Alternate 1, option 1, payback years 3.8, option 2, 4.2 years, option 3, 5.2 years, option 4, 3.7 years. The takeaway is it's pretty short payback time, extremely short. And there's probably not that much significance on which option we eventually decide to go with based on payback. It's just very, very quick. So I wanted to point those out to you. So the Energy Committee is going to look at this report. We had a good discussion at the Infrastructure Committee meeting, just presented the committee with the same report. Had a little talk through, just get people familiar with it. And then, like I said, the Energy Committee is going to come back to us and do a little further dissection and matrix and, have a different, better discussion. So just wanted to get this out to you.
Yeah.
So you have it.
Okay, thanks, Dan.
Yep. Other thing is, to talk briefly on Court Street, Monroe Street, Charles Avenue, preliminary design. And I think Kathleen's going to get that up there. And so, about the same time you're seeing this, the school board is going to be taking a look at it also. VHB has been doing the work on it. We've had a couple team meetings with town staff and Bruce McIntyre from the school. And if I'm going to just get up here and point a few things. So, what the town is concerned about is, on this side, is the Court Street and then Charles Avenue, and of course a little bit of Monroe Street. Right now we're talking about putting a 3-lane road section going south. This would be a right turn lane into the future Charles Avenue. This part here is the current Charles Avenue. So where the Maverick gas station is, that becomes the new Charles Avenue. So there's a right turn lane going on to Charles, heading towards the school. There's a left turn lane going to Monroe Street, and a through lane going due south. From the south heading north, there's really not significant change. There's already a left turn lane. Left turn lane into Charles. That would remain the same function. The new Charles Avenue would begin right about at the little parking area in front of the gym area, and then goes easterly hits the intersection at Court Street. You'll notice along this side there, we've added some parking along the side. There's a new sidewalk that comes along the curb line. These little dots, green dots, are trees. There's a lot of infrastructure in Charles Avenue. This will all be grown over with grass. Part of this would be available to the school if they have any stormwater needs to use for anything that comes their way. Coming out of Charles, there's a right-hand turn lane, and then there's the other lane is a straight through to Monroe Street, or a left turn lane on Court Street. All of this would be signalized intersection with pedestrian activation at the crosswalks. Crosswalks are identified like this, right here. What the school is looking at is how does this work for them. That's kind of their world. Net on parking is the same. I can't remember the number, 54, 94, whatever, but no loss in parking. For them. They are considering one way in and one way out at this location, and this would be only an out, a right turn and a left turn. Looking at this area for some of the smaller buses that pick kids up, taking to like the career center. They want to retain the U-shaped loop in front. And they're going to have a discussion about that. But I wanted to bring this forward so you get an idea of where it's at right now. So if you have thoughts or comments, send them through Kathleen to me. If there's anything you see, we'll take it into consideration.
One thing I wondered about after we met, can we ask VHB to do a bid alternate on putting a culvert in for that whole section, so we don't have that gully in between where the culvert crosses Route 7 and where we put a new culvert in? Can we ask them to give us
Yeah,
a bid alternate for that?
continuous culvert.
Yeah. I was thinking, one of the things that Nick had said he liked about one of the initial drawings and how it kind of moved support was if we considered some housing in what was left of the space there. And I know it's a little bit challenging because of the terrain there. The other thing is the infrastructure. When we replaced the infrastructure on Charles Avenue, we stopped, the picture's not still, we stopped at the
Stop sign.
stop at the stop sign, right? So what I'm wondering also about the age of what's buried to Route 7. And does it also make sense to add a bid alternate in there to consider relocating and replacing that infrastructure so that we could consider doing something with that property? I don't know what, one, if you put culvert all across there, maybe, so we don't have like a downtown Tuttle situation where we have two culverts and a big gully in the middle. And then I would really hate to do this project and not address the infrastructure in Charles Avenue from Route 7 to that stop sign. And it makes sense to me that we consider putting it underneath the new Charles Avenue, moving it out of that. Anyway, these are things, I'm sorry I didn't think about this the other day. Sometimes it's delayed. Anyway, we're still early enough in the process, I think it would be a good time to ask some of those questions of VHB. If you got, you know.
Yeah, no, I had a quick, what might be a silly question, but I don't know. So we're gonna move the road. Currently, we own the road. Who owns where the road is now, once we move the road?
The town does.
We do.
We retain that.
It's a town road. Would be
Okay.
a town road.
And we'll retain the, okay.
The old, what is, the current Charles Avenue, which would become the old Charles Avenue, has gravity sewer, water main, sanitary force main in it. So there's a lot in it. Water needs to be upgraded, the sanitary gravity needs to be upgraded. The force main is 12 years old, something like that.
Is it feasible to put housing there?
That's new.
Yeah.
Would it be feasible to put housing there?
I think the question would be to Jen Murray and to see what setbacks would be. I think you'd run into that issue
Okay.
on properties.
One of our earlier depictions of this did have some housing in there, or maybe we just discussed it, but
Yeah, I think it's,
actually getting the measurements for the setbacks and whatnot, make sure that it complies with that is important.
yeah, I think,
Okay.
and I don't know that there was any consideration to the fact that of the infrastructure that exists in the location
It
and.
was never discussed at
Yeah.
the time.
I never know if it's just aspirational.
The only thing I wonder is if we do take the time to relocate that infrastructure, if there was enough room to put something there, could we recoup some costs in selling that parcel of land? But I think I'm pretty sure I'd want that infrastructure moved before we did that. But it would be worth a conversation with Jen to see what the setbacks are and see if there's even a possibility of putting something there. And there was some mention in infrastructure committee about the administrative building, that white building on the corner of the parking lot of the school.
ACSD.
Yeah,
The one that's by
needing to
CDUUS?
consider what they wanted to do.
Right.
You know, do they want to purchase the property and
Put a new office there.
Move their administrative building? Still early in the process.
Don's got a question?
Is there any chance of putting a rotary there instead of doing that all the lines? I live off of Monroe, and when you go south, if you stop, everybody probably knows, but if you stop there, turn on Monroe, you got 20 cars behind you, that just stacks up each way. I didn't know if there was a chance of putting a rotary there. That way all the traffic can keep moving. I don't know if there's enough room, maybe there's not enough room, but.
Well, yeah, I can answer that. VHB, who did the preliminary study that was presented to the town in 2015, looked at a few options, and Roundabout was one of those, and it did not perform as well as a signalized intersection. Definitely had some issues with pedestrian safety because of people, you know, how do you protect those people before and after the actual roundabout?
That's gonna be a slow, it's gonna be a lot stop.
There is in this design a dedicated,
Left turn.
yeah,
Lane to go through.
left turn lane, when you're southbound, left turn lane
Because I always
into.
get into the lane that I'm not supposed to be in to sit there, and I'll tell you, right here, that I turn 90% of the time this way. There's no way, once that traffic starts coming south, you're not gonna get through.
That's right.
Chief's going,
The moment's come.
Victimless crime.
Ross?
I think the gentleman's comment is a good one. Not only because roundabouts are known to reduce idle time and therefore pollution and energy use. If safety is an issue, was it looked at building a walkway over Route 7 for pedestrians so that there is no safety issue for pedestrians, but we could have the most efficient movement of cars through the area?
No, was not.
Is that something that's possible to look at?
That would be up to the board, but I honestly don't think it would fit. I just,
Be way too high, and you have to go way too low with traffic.
yeah.
I thought with the rotary, if I'm remembering this correctly, there was also an issue of we would essentially need to take over half of some people's yards across the way there.
I think the property on, is Gary still here? I think your property there might have been in jeopardy with a roundabout. Yeah. The main issue was the, you know, people will drive a little quicker probably than what they should, and how do you keep the pedestrians safe at those crosswalks? You got to pull them back away from the roundabout to, so there's visibility for people coming out of the roundabout that they see them in time.
Then you'd have to still signalize it for the crosswalks. That's a high-volume crosswalk.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, can we move on to the next one then? Ilsley 100 project team?
Sure. So the Ilsley 100 project team is requesting the board to award a contract to Erickson Consulting, and this is for cost estimating services for the library renovation expansion project. Dana Hart, the director of the library, is requesting approval of the contract to provide an order of magnitude cost for estimating services for their project. Erickson's total project cost is not to exceed $8,750. Erickson has been used on several other town projects, I believe, maybe this building, police department, fire department, I think also. Not certain, but we've used them for several things. So that's her request to approve Erickson for $8,750.
This isn't actually order of magnitude. It's not somewhere between $1 and $10 million, right? Like, it's a little more accurate than that.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's rough.
Yeah. Right. Factor of 2 I can handle, I guess. Factor of 10 seems like a lot.
I hope we can get within, inside of 2, though.
That'd be good.
When we're talking about millions of dollars.
Right.
Well, the other thing is that we've got 4 options that we're looking at.
Yep.
So he's going to price the 4 different options so we can have a comparative analysis between the ones to see the cost. So it's more than just looking at one.
Yep.
I'll move to award a contract for construction management consultant services to Erickson Consulting under the sole source purchases provision of the purchasing policy at a total cost of $8,750.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Before we say goodbye to you, Dan, just so everybody, Emily, I don't think you've been into one of our meetings yet, have you? And I want to make sure everybody has an opportunity to see who our new head of planning and at the on infrastructure is. And so, Emily, when do you, you're not formally joining us till October, right?
No.
Or are you? Are you
No,
on?
I officially started yesterday.
You started yesterday, all right. So she's got 4 months, the better part of 4 months to drag everything out of Dan.
He keeps telling me it's only 3.
And I keep telling him he's on the Beth Dow retirement plan.
So, well, welcome aboard. We really are excited to have you here. She's coming to us from the St. Albans community and lives local. And so we're and she's got experience on green infrastructure. So I think it's something, she brings a lot to the table here. We'll miss Dan, but it's always nice to have a friendly face that you know who you're looking and talking to.
Dan, I know a lot of these folks are waiting for the next item, but I'm on Washington Street Extension, and Washington Street, that block, has been posted one way all summer, and there's been no work done for probably 2 or 3 weeks. It's been marked local traffic only, and it's just been a parking for some heavy machinery. Is there any pressure we can put on the contractors to not close our infrastructure for long periods of time when nothing's being done?
Well, yeah, actually, the paving should be happening fairly soon, so that should go away.
Great.
Almost all of the underground infrastructure is complete.
Yeah.
Actually, that was kept closed on some of the requests of the residents who did not want traffic going through there and the dust.
All the
and,
dust.
Sure.
Potholes from the rain, little rain, so that was kind of their thing. So we kind of accommodated, but I understand where you're coming from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
What happened this morning on Washington? We lost power.
No, I did that.
Oh, Sandy.
Didn't I tell you?
You said you were walking, you noticed something. You did
Yeah.
not.
No, I'm responsible for the power outage this morning, guys. I'm sorry about that. I was walking the dog and I heard a buzzing and noticed it was coming from a pole right on the corner of Washington Seminary Street Extensions, and I called GMP, and they came down and identified that an insulator had failed and that the electricity was burning through the cross member on the pole. And in an hour, they had 3 trucks there to replace all of the top of the pole. It was pretty awesome. But I'm sorry about the power outage.
Thank you for noticing.
Yeah. Thanks, Dan.
Thanks, Dan.
Thanks, Dan.
Thanks, Emily.
Good
Thanks,
to see you,
Emily.
Emily.
So as I look around here, I'm thinking there's not much more on this than the airport master plan discussion. So we scheduled this for deliberation of the select board, but with that said, it's an open meeting, and we appreciate any comments. I'd like to start with the select board themselves, though, on this particular topic, and see where we stand. We're at a point where any input for the airport master plan from the select board needs to be done this week. So this is our opportunity to discuss it. In our packet, there were some letters. There's an email from David Prescott. There was a letter signed that was sent out by Ruth Hardy and signed by Farhad, Lindsay, and Amy Sheldon. And there was also in your email today a letter from Andy Sambrook, and I think those were the.
And
there was one.
Just before the meeting, Lindsay forwarded an email from Amy Sheldon, which was distributed to the board.
Yeah.
So, with this being the deadline for submitting comments, in preparation for this, I had gotten with Kathleen and puts a couple draft comments into a letter, and I did it. I believe everybody got a copy of it from Kathleen today.
Is it in the packet or in email? 'Cause I didn't see it.
It's in the packet. It's in the packet now.
Packet as well.
Oh, why didn't I see it?
Try to pull it up here.
See if I can find it to start conversation.
Can't find it right now, but I read it earlier.
It's there, 10B. It's in the packet. And if you go into the packet.
Okay.
Yeah.
It says, we write with regard to the draft master plan update for the Middlebury Airport. We reviewed the proposed draft update and respectfully request that the State of Vermont Agency of Transportation incorporate the following concepts into the final master plan. Protection of environmental resources, including the town's water source protection area. Location of airport hangar building envelopes to minimize impact to airport neighbors, and specifically to arrange the largest hangar such that it doesn't shadow the airport's closest neighbor, if possible, and improvements to Airport Road to maximize safety for Airport Road residents and users of the airport. So those are the three that I garnered, and with that, open it up for deliberation of the board.
So we went on that tour with Cisco, Lindsay, Heather, and myself. And first time I met Cisco, very nice gentleman. I didn't get to meet you that day, but we also met with Bill Hamp, and it's very. He has a lot of knowledge about hangars, the history behind the hangars, and who owns the hangars, and what are the whole. I live right next door, but I've never seen the airport in that sense. So I really appreciate that. I understood a lot of things. Again, hangars will still be my concern, but I think it was a great tour. It was a great tour going with him.
I had some thoughts about the process in general, not necessarily what we're doing or not doing with the airport, but it feels a lot like a lot of the problem is just that communication broke down between the state and the residents. So I think the state should consider changing the way they designate abutters, because something that uses airspace, it doesn't necessarily matter whether your property touches the airport property or not. They could do it instead in terms of a radius, and those houses within a 1 mile radius or 1.5 mile radius, whatever makes sense, could be considered abutters and get those notices. I also think they should be, whenever they're sending out any notices to any residents, they should also have a designated place on the Middlebury Airport website where those notices, are put, so that anybody in the community, regardless of whether or not they're considered an abutter, can see what is going on at the airport. And then it came in kind of late, so you may not have all seen it, but I was curious if our airport has more neighbors than other airports, and we actually have more homes within a 1 mile radius of the airport than any other airport in the state, including much bigger airports like Rutland. So, if you look at the list, there are a few airports that have really close neighbors, and a lot of them only have a few homes. So, I think the state should consider maybe designating those airports that have close-knit communities around the airport somewhat differently. Or I really think they need to think about their process and how they're communicating with people, especially for those airports like ours where there's, you know, community right around the airport. So those were my only thoughts at this point.
Did you want to incorporate some of those in the letter?
If people are amenable to it, I think, you know, I think this is the time to give suggestions, and to me, I think that, you know, down the line, obviously that doesn't solve the issue of what we're doing with hangars at the moment, but I think improving you know, the homes aren't going anywhere, the families aren't going anywhere, ostensibly, the airport's not going anywhere, so the process needs to work better.
One of the things that we did to try to ensure that everybody was informed was to establish a periodic meeting with MANA and the representatives, as well as posting everything on the town's website. We've got an airport section on the town's website.
I think it makes more sense to just have the state put it on it's their website. Why can't they do it directly? Why do we have to?
Yeah, I mean,
I'm trying to cut out the middlemen, because you can also have MANA disseminate information to neighbors, but that is clunky.
Well, we thought that was going to work, but then we found out that really MANA is only a handful of people. It's not the community out there.
Right. Well, what I can say as an East Middlebury resident is that people who are not a part of MANA and do not live, you know, on Airport Road, have come to me, have stopped me, and complained about noise from the airport.
Some of these homes are on the flight path. They're not necessarily right next to the airport, but they are in the flight path. And
Right.
they complain about the noise and so.
So it is more, like, there is more concern than just the few people we've heard from MANA.
One of the things I would be interested in, I lived in my youth before we moved to Middlebury, was at the end of the Air Guard runway up in South Burlington. And we had jets flying over our house all the time, and when they did night maneuvers. And I would be interested to know that, get the decibel levels of the planes going over these homes versus the homes that are on Route 7, Route 125, 116 with trucks or Harleys or whatever going by. Because I'm sensitive to the need to be good neighbors to everybody, but at the same time, I don't know if it's as loud. I was out there and we had some planes take off, and you know, a tractor going by is a lot louder, or a tractor trailer going by can be louder if it's under load than some of the airplanes that go out of there. So I think the helicopters that the Guard comes in with tend to be the loudest. And one of the complaints that we had from Prescott's was that it was increasing. Yes, I found out. I mean, I follow up on all these things, and I found out that they're training for deployment.
Cisco said that.
And from 8:40 at night to 9:10 at night, you know, I'd say they were being very reasonable to keep it in hours that are expected that you can make those types of noises. And you know, I used to command that unit. It was underneath my command. We deployed them many times, and they have a requirement for night flight. They have, you know, you got to get so many hours in, and there's a lot of pilots. So the Middlebury Airport is just one of many airports that get some of those hours. If they were doing all of them at Middlebury, I could say that's probably excessive, but they're not. So I don't know.
Lindsay, since we're going to be focusing on this tonight, in the interest of time, I have the first one, your recommendations for communication, improvements to communication, but what was your second point?
So you have changing abutters to be a radius.
And
posting notices to the website. And then potentially consider designating certain airports in the state, including ours, that have a close community, you know, designating them somewhat differently in an effort to, you know, maybe give more attention to the process in those cases. Because I mean, I'm looking at it from a standpoint of, you know, we're hearing a lot of different complaints from the community. It's not one thing. If it was one clear issue, then it would be clear how to move forward, right? If everybody was complaining about
That's the
traffic.
challenge.
Right.
You know,
There's a
I
lot
asked
of,
for a list of what are the biggest issues, and it depended upon the individual.
right. But I think mostly what the anxiety is, from what I can see, is people feeling that they were left out of the process. And there's a lot of anxiety that the process is going to move forward and they're not going to be aware of what's going on. They won't have the opportunity to speak. And I think that with some reasonable tweaking on the part of the state, it could be better in the future.
Can we hear what the problem is, the real problem? This airport's been there since in the 50s. These houses were all built afterwards. Every house had to have a building permit. Who the hell created the problem? The town did. The town let them build houses on top of the airport. That's another problem. This is not right. You guys condemning the airport and getting after the people in the airport. That airport is a vital part of our community.
Could you-
The people that bought the houses knew that the airport was there. Absolutely.
Could you identify yourself just so we have your name for the
I'm
record?
Gardner Stone.
Thank you, Gardner. And
This is absolutely
Bernard Cattell.
bullshit.
Is there any way to get the board to say their feeling, each one, on the
Can
airport?
you want to come up front?
From my understanding.
Come on.
Come to the microphone so people can hear you and state your name for the record, please.
Michael Vincent with J&M Aviation at the airport.
You gotta
And
speak up, we can't hear you. Speak into the
Michael Vincent with J&M at the airport. I'm wondering, from what I have seen from our local leaders, is that they may or may not side one way or the other. I know I hear from the select board that small business is very important. People living in the community, people staying. My business has been 22 years at the airport. I've been there since I got back from the military. And the stuff I'm reading now is not that there's a problem with the hangar, there's a problem with the runway. It's we need to move the airport, that it's somehow a problem after 70 years. And I'd just like to know how the select board feels. I mean, I know I just heard that, you know, we're not trying to do anything with moving the airport, but my business, my family, we live here. I'm a neighbor of the airport. I live in East Middlebury. I'm not a part of the group. I asked to be part of the group, Amana, which then they would have, you know, knowledge of the airport and what's going on. But it's kind of unnerving to know that, you know, there's people that would rather see the businesses fail or move or whatever, not in my backyard. Route 7's in my front yard. The trucks are louder than the airplanes. I live at the airport. And when I'm at home, the trucks are louder, but, you know, that's part of life. I knew where my house was, right next to Route 7. Which, if you buy a house next to the airport that's been there for 70 years, and within a year start complaining about it, it's kind of hard to take. So, that's as much as I'll say.
Before we get into more comments, can I just make a couple of comments? So, I would like to say thanks to Cisco and the airport for the tour the other day. I had been out there previously, but had not had the opportunity to see the improvements since they were done. And also, it's pretty cool to ride in a state vehicle with a flashing light up the runway, just so you know. Anyway, so I attended the master plan meeting. I don't remember when it was held. Not that I'm correct, but my personal interpretation of what was presented was there was no increase to the proposed size of the aircraft, to the designate, I can't remember exactly what it was called, but the type of aircraft that are generally using the airport. There was no change to that. There was no increase to the size of the runway proposed. There was the issue of the hangars, which I think is separate in Act 250. There was some additional potential tree cutting, which okay, more tree cutting, there could be some concern there. The proposal for the, I'm sorry, my words are leaving my brain tonight, but there was the terminal. They use the terminal, but it's not like, when I think of terminal, I think of like going to Reagan National Airport. It was not like that at all. It was really a tiny building, and it was really about providing some rest space and some facilities for pilots coming in and out of there. In general, as in relation to the master plan, other than the hangars and the tree cutting, for me personally, I did not have any concerns and really felt like some of what we were hearing felt a little more exaggerated than what my personal interpretation of for being in that meeting and reviewing the information. So, for what it's worth, I'll just provide that.
Mike?
My name's Mike Bordelot. I run a business in Bridport, Mike's Fuels. I'm also a private pilot, and I just think that the airport is vital to the community. I mean, there's people that live outside Middlebury and use it and bring a lot of business into Middlebury and supporting the taxpayers. I mean, and plus in your emergency plan, I'm sure the airport would be part of it as far as when you have issues. That's a gathering place. It's a wide open space. It's vital to the community as far as businesses. There's so many businesses that rely on the airport to bring people in. I know there's businesses here tonight that are representing the airport that utilize the airport to bring customers in. It's not huge, but Middlebury College has students flying in, they have parents flying in, checking out the college. They, the military uses it, as Brian was saying. It just seems a shame that a couple of the politicians in town and local politicians are signing on to say something to the state that it should be not done. There should be no work done to the airport, and it should be cease and desist. There was a letter generated, and I just think it's wrong. I mean, you gotta support the community, and that's all I gotta say. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Mike.
I live on Route 7, and if they want to close the airport down, I wish they'd close Route 7 down, because it's awful noisy out there.
Yeah, so Brian and I did a tour with Cisco as well a day before the other select board members, and I was heartened to hear that they're bringing the fuel tank above ground with a double wall, as well as very good containment in case there is any kind of breach there. I thought that the concerns about contamination and the sensitive nature of the area seemed to be very well addressed regarding the storage of fuel on site. I have experience with night lighting at small airports. I actually had a friend whose daughter had a heart defect and needed a flight to a hospital in Cincinnati. And we were living in Montpelier at the time and went up to the Knapp Airport in Berlin. And I'm like, what are we doing here? There's no one here. We're the only car up here. What's going on? And we're sitting around wondering how this all works. And suddenly, like 15 minutes later, the lights turned on. And 5 minutes later, a plane landed, and they took my friend and his daughter and zipped right off, and 10 minutes later, the lights were off again. I was like, that is the most amazing thing I've ever seen. And they went off and got heart surgery in Cincinnati, and it was all fantastic. The lighting is very directional, very short-term, very purposeful for the safety of pilots. It seems like a minor upgrade for an airport. My sense in my short time addressing this issue around the airport is that the goalposts seem to keep moving. The issues that came to us a few months ago seemed like they were fully addressed by the state and by the MANA representative at the time. And then that wasn't good enough, and the issues were really around property values and changes in view site because of where potential hangars might be in the future. I am certainly sensitive to property rights, but that definitely cuts both ways. This airport is part of the statewide transportation network, which is taken care of not at the town level, but at the state level. Just like we can't shut down Route 7, we have certainly the ability to raise our voice to the state and say what we'd like, but this is something that VTrans does to create a transportation network for the whole state.
So I am one of the people that signed the letter, for the record, and I did so as an effort to raise the voice on behalf of neighbors that were coming with various concerns. I think the root of the problem is that when we move through this process, I think when there is a community that close to the airport, the state really has to pause and make every effort to be sure things are communicated, that they're communicated well, that people know what's going on. And I do think they should consider having a clear end game for how big they think the airport could potentially grow, just to alleviate that stress from the community. Of course, people bought houses knowing the airport was there, but at any given moment in Middlebury, there might be 5 houses for sale, and 1 or 2 of them might be in somebody's price range. You know, we have a housing crisis. Even before we had a housing crisis, I bought my house, 7 years ago? There were 3 houses in my price range for sale in Middlebury. You know, so it's not like people necessarily have a ton of agency to choose to live somewhere else if they're staying within our town limits. You asked what I feel about the airport. I think the airport is an asset to the community, but I also think the state has a responsibility to be sure they're communicating with that community and people are clear about what's going on. And the letter on my part was an effort to advocate for people in my community that were coming forward and saying that they have issues. I stand by that. I signed it knowing people were going to be mad about it. For the record, I personally don't see the airport moving. I'm not here to advocate for the airport moving. I think that's such a big project that's not going to happen. I think my focus is looking at the process long term and how can we be sure that operations at the airport can happen with the knowledge of the community and the backing of the community, and I think that boils down to how things are communicated and where things are communicated and with whom. That's what my suggestions were in this meeting, and those are some of the things I think we should communicate when we write this letter.
So,
We have somebody who hasn't spoken
Brian.
yet.
Brian, can I comment first?
In terms of communication, the members of the airport community are specifically not invited to mine. And you're talking about a separation of communication between the pro and con airport communities. If the people of the airport were invited to be members of MANA, then you might get a lot easier communication that way. Things might be resolved a lot easier.
We could encourage that, but.
Oh, you have rejected.
No, we don't have anything, MANA is a community group, we don't.
Yeah, they've rejected people. I requested to be part of it.
Right, but my understanding is MANA is a community group, we don't.
That's an independent.
I understand, it's not a.
Right, we don't have anything to do with it. It's like, I can't decide who's on the Rotary either, you know, that's not us.
But information, if you look at the airport, the runway used to be 4,000 feet. It used to have lights. These are things that, the group doesn't know or doesn't seem to know. And you're not growing as big as it is. It's something 3,200 feet, not 4,000. And it just seems really weird that I realize that you did this because you're wanting to make a point, but in that letter, it specifically states that you don't want the airport there. It doesn't need to be there. You want to build houses. It should be a park. It's a great piece of property. There's no one better to protect it but the airport. You put houses on there, you got septic systems and cars and all those things. Right now, the impervious surface is what's there.
Right. So, I mean, the letter was a joint letter and it included various concerns from people in the community.
If I'm gonna put my name on something,
I did sign it.
So you agree then it should be closed, or?
I'm not advocating for the airport to be closed, no.
And that letter is going where? To
The letter went out to a lot of people, and what it said was to halt things. And for me, what that means is halt until we can get the process down so that we don't wind up with this mess going forward.
No.
Hold on, we've got, next is Heather.
So, again, based on my personal attendance at that Act 250 meeting and what review I've done of the master plan, the master plan is like a 15-year plan, I believe, and there was no proposed increase to the runway, to the, or a change in the designation of the type of aircraft, like not bigger or jets, or the classification that exists for that airport right now is being proposed to stay the same. So I don't see any evidence in what's been provided that there's any proposed increases to the airport other than the potential for some new hangars. Like there's not. So anyway, I think asking the state to stop when I don't think they're really proposing any increase is a little bit of a struggle for me.
It's not necessarily a stop. It clearly states, if you read the last thing on there, that you don't want the airport there. You're
Yeah,
gonna put your name to a letter and say that it doesn't bring any money, it's in there, that it doesn't bring any tax revenue to the town.
I pay taxes on it. My hangar.
It's kind of a weird thing, but okay. And that you want to build houses, it's clearly in there. So if you're going to put your name on it, it seems that you would back all of the stuff that's in there, not just go, my name's on there, but I'm only for one thing over here. That just...
And I believe it's... No, go ahead.
How many people are you representing in this petition or whatever?
A number of people have come
How
to
many?
us. I don't know. At least an
10, 5,
equal,
1.
at least an equal number as the people who are in this room right now.
Well, we only brought a fraction, because
I'm
we
sure they
can-
also only
if
brought-
you want, we can fill this room in a heartbeat. I made some last minute phone calls with Mike, and we just wanted to get some of the business leaders into town to show our support for Mike and his business, Bill Hoff. There's numerous businesses at the airport that they supply R&L rubbish, there's Snap-on, there's all kinds of businesses that do business in the airport. I mean, that's just a couple, I'm just around. So I mean, when you say that you support the community, we support the airport, and we believe that they bring a lot to the table. And to just dismiss it with a letter saying it should be done away with because you have 10 people or 20 or whatever, you're affecting the livelihood, you know, the lives of individuals that make a living and support their family. I just think to be so nonchalant and sign your name to something and say you want to cease and desist, it just...
Can I interrupt?
I hope you're not running for any office.
Hey, Dan?
Yeah, let Dan.
Dan, if you got comments?
Yeah, there's not much that I can add. I do want everybody to hear my voice. What Andy said, I agree with. These issues first came before the select board, had to do with lack of trust in the state and the Act 250 process and the master plan process. And we've addressed them as best we could. We've got reassurances. We've helped reorganize. We put the committees and have been very, Brian, you've dealt a lot with the state, particularly Act 250. And now that it's escalated to an unreasonable level of the conversation of closing the airport. This letter, and I guess other discussions and other letters we received. And no matter what we've been doing as a select board, it's just growing and growing and growing with more and more unreasonable complaints. I am.
You're cutting out now.
To represent the community and the businesses that are at the airport are very, very important. I'm a little surprised at the letter. And for full disclosure, I'm a 27-year Navy pilot, and if I took my airplane off on the runway, you would all know that there was noise. So, but I just wanted to throw in my 2 cents, being far away.
Heather?
I just would like us to get back to the issue that we need to address tonight, and that is if we want to submit comments on the master plan, we have to decide on what those comments are, and we have to do it tonight because they're due by
15th.
Thursday, Friday, the
15th.
15th, whenever that is,
15th.
Thursday. So can we try to get back?
Can I ask one last question? I hate to interrupt. So that letter that I read, does that go to the master plan?
It went everywhere.
It went to the master
Yeah.
plan.
Yeah.
I'm guessing.
But
So
we have.
half the select board
So-
is on the.
So,
No,
2 out of
No.
7.
no, it's not.
That doesn't represent the select board.
It doesn't.
that
It
is
does not represent the select board.
It's not even a quorum of the select board. So
State on a state letterhead.
The state and our state rep for a county, not for Middlebury. It just seems really, I don't know, it seems like a bad thing to do.
We are all people who live in East Middlebury.
We do.
Why was it on a state letterhead?
let's, I know everybody here would like to comment, but the board does have to make a decision on whether we as a group, have a consensus on what we would like to submit for a letter to the state on the master plan. And I do appreciate you all, I'm sorry, I'm gonna speak for myself. I appreciate you all being here this evening and providing us with your input, but, it's late and we do need to, if we.
I'm going to take just one more comment. Darcy hasn't spoken yet. Darcy?
The only comment I have a couple of them. First anybody wanting to get rid of a business like that. But secondly, you know, if people have concerns, the only way to address it is communication. Rather than writing a letter and starting all of this, why didn't anybody at least go over and see Mike at the airport and say, hey, we've got some people with some concerns. Can we come over here to the airport and have a discussion with you and look at your facility and look at what you do, and maybe you can answer some questions, and maybe it would help with our situation?
We have done that. And this is one of several meetings we've had where we have been discussing the airport.
No, but I mean the people that are disturbed by the airport.
Oh, I
Have
see.
they physically gone to Mike and said, can we have a discussion? Can we have some questions answered?
I'm sure some of them
We did
have.
have discussions with Manna on the runway extension, and I thought that the same people were part of that, but it has changed since then. And new people came on with a new complaint.
Well, this is the, yeah, and this is a problem, the complaints have changed, and so, I do want.
Have Fred and Judy online, I just.
Fred, can you sit this one out, please?
Yes.
I do want to just make my observations too, because I got this letter like everybody else, and you know, frankly, I was a little disturbed by it. And I understand we have some issues and there's some things, but I thought that it overblew some concerns, and it's not pesticide, it's herbicide that we're talking about, and it's the same herbicide put on a lot of farm fields and whatnot, all around above that aquifer. And we target the airport because they're keeping the growth down along the fence line. And we're just picking all these targets, and I was very disturbed about the minimizing some businesses out there. And for me, you know, one of my things is the economic development and the town, especially, you know, when we were downtown and a couple businesses went out, everybody, what are you doing about economic development? And it really bothers me when we got some successful businesses and we minimize them in a letter. I just thought it was very poor taste to put that into the letter the way it was inserted. The tax issue. I did get another letter that came just, you know, we're getting letters just up to the minute of the meeting, and I don't even think it's complete because his signature block's not on it and whatnot, but from Silver Maple Construction, and they keep all of their business within our community, and they're able to do it because they're using the platform of the state airport. And he gives, I'm going to give this to Kathleen so that, and I'm going to ask him if tomorrow if he could finish the letter and it can be added to the packet. But there's another business that isn't counted out there. And the whole idea of you know, moving the airport, I could just see how fun that would be because it would be NIMBY to the next people, but it would be people who hadn't prepared for it. That came from an editorial which I thought was poorly timed and ill thought out by a friend of mine, Angela Lynn. I didn't like it because it's a red herring. It's just thrown out. I mean, it's just not a reality for us at this time, and we have to deal with the cards that were dealt. And and we actually met and talked about it. If you had it to do 50 years ago, you might move in a different area, but we've got an airport that's been developed. You got a lot of private, okay, well, good.
Right now, we're standing registered.
It was 70 years.
Well, then,
You're right.
and then the discussion of turning it into housing, I just had to, it was almost laughable to put that in there after talking about preservation of the aquifer, but then you're going to put a lot of houses on there, and those are all septic systems, unless you're going to run town septic all the way out there. So I was not feeling like it changed my mind at all. I do feel that we have an onus. We represent 8,500 people in this community, and there are some people who are impacted. And I think we need to make some comments to the planning, because it's very clear. There's like, you know, the one guy who can see this house, see from his house, can see the airfield, is Andy Sambrook, and they, because the airport allowed them to cut the trees in front of their house, it wasn't even them, it was their predecessor. And they played nice with them, extended the fence off from their line and everything, but they've created a feeling that you're going to be able to have a sight line and everything. And so to put the largest hangar in the plan right in front of theirs, I thought, well, why can't you shuffle those hangars? And so that, because it's not the fact that you're putting a hangar there, it's you're putting the largest, so the peak's it's going to shade his house a lot longer into the day. And so I would like to make a comment asking for them to at least consider that, and then to ensure, I mean, the Act 250 process is going to do all of the environmental protections. They're charged with it. That's the purpose of Act 250. And so we'll have a chance to look at that in a couple of meetings, but and see if we want to make any comments on that. But I think that should be laid out in the master plan too, is what are they doing to ensure that the airport is in compliance with all the environmental issues. And then we've had to, if you grow the airport and you have more traffic along Airport Road, I do feel improving that road should be part of the development of it, and that would make it so that it was better for everybody living out there. As far as the communication, I agree, you know, put something in there. I tried to improve it the best I could.
Right. No, I know you
okay, with the MANA rep and everything, and then I find that MANA's just a small group. It's not the whole community. So then we were posting it on the town website, but as long as there's one spot where it goes to, where people can have access to the information, I do feel we have known that we were posting it on the town for a year or whatever. I mean, I've been dealing with this thing. I think I've got more hours in it, not more than the tunnel project, but I got a lot of hours in this. And anybody out there who doesn't know that this plan's been going on and hasn't been able to find the information, hasn't been, you know, they've probably been out of town, because this is very well known. And so I don't feel like we should stop the process, because everybody, how many times have we listened to people speak? You saw that when they did the first master plan meeting, how many people showed up and had an opportunity to speak, and it was going to be another one of those. So I feel like they've had an opportunity to be heard. The other thing I'm disappointed in is that a state legislator for the county is representing themselves as a East Middlebury legislator. In my book, when you're elected to represent the county of Addison County, you're looking at the entirety of Addison County, and I don't see it in that letter. In fact, I see a very self-centered interest in that is very disappointing to me. Because it minimizes the concerns of many other citizens, and that's, it's not balanced. I don't find a balance.
Thank you. I appreciate you sharing your thoughts. And I'm glad you had the opportunity to finally do so.
I've been trying to make sure everybody else has a chance to.
I know, but then that means that you don't get a chance to. So,
did you add that to the letter, that what Lindsay had wanted, and can we read that letter, what it would look like, and see if that's?
Can I make another?
No, I've been here listening.
I can send you an email with
Okay,
my few
well,
points
we'll
after.
need to do that tonight.
We need to do it tonight because we need to sign it.
Okay.
So just a suggestion on the improvements to Airport Road, can we make that pending, like, if the airport is considering, increasing runway hangar, you know, like the improvements should be tied, you know, like the whole school
Well,
hills?
I think it's tied to increase in car count, which is really tied to whether anybody ever brings another business there, which is the large hangar.
Right.
Cisco says that he actually has planes there that are looking for hangar
He
space.
says, what he told us was everyone, most of the people that are in the tie-down lot would like a hangar. I don't know if that's just his.
I have a list of 20 people.
Right.
And
And,
Cisco had a piece of paper on his visor.
right, with a list of names, and there was
Yeah.
maybe a dozen names on it.
And that doesn't increase car count. But if you build the large hangar, the person who's going to build that large hangar is for business. And just to be clear, that goes through our development review process, so we have an opportunity to ensure that that business fits what the town of Middlebury wants and what works within that community. I mean, we're not gonna put, a heavy engineering company out there at the airport in the middle of all of that, of that housing development. But if you had another repair, another avionics repair company or something like that, that was a lower footprint and was environmentally friendly, that's the type of thing that,
So what I was trying to say about the improvements to Airport Road is tying that to, proposed, like car count or whatever. Right now, it doesn't say improvements to Airport Road to maximize safety. When are we asking for that?
I think when the businesses increase out there.
Okay, can we
The
add
trigger
that?
ought to be with the addition of another,
What about something about increased car counts?
Yeah. So like, I'm thinking about the Schoolhouse Hill Road agreement with Carrera, if the Burnham Drive and the gravel pit were all gonna increase, then we had a three-way, agreement that the road would be upgraded.
So it would be
So
us,
the,
the
so a
state,
similar type of deal where, if the airport's being upgraded, then we also need to consider, maybe a two-way agreement on improvements to Airport Road.
Two-way with the airport and the town, or the state and the town.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I would like it to be 100% the state, but I didn't figure that would go over real big.
And again, I think part of why we're here is that trust with neighbors isn't there because those things aren't delineated out. It's just, here's what could happen.
What do you think is not delineated out?
What is the most it would grow?
I'm sorry.
Like a maximum number of hangars, a maximum runway.
But in this master plan that's supposed to cover the next 15 years, there's no proposed increase to the runway.
I know.
No proposed change in the plane designation, the type of aircraft landing, the number, there's a small terminal proposed, there's some hangars proposed, but somebody has to want to build them, like the state's not gonna put them in. I personally don't see any evidence that the airport is trying to expand any further than it is now. And if somebody sees evidence that they are, they have to show it to me specifically, because I can't find it. Other than the hangars potential, yes.
did you read Andy's
Yes, I read
letter?
Andy's.
I mean, it's the what could happen. And
It's the
I
what
do
could
feel,
happen.
I do feel like there's safeguards. We have a DRB process. There is a formal Act 250 that would have to be followed. And I don't know, I just have a higher level of trust, I guess,
Right,
but I'm not the guy, I'm not in Andy's house,
Right.
you know, and I understand where they are at, but at some level, we have to have some trust, or we wouldn't be able to move anything forward in this community. I remember the fights that we had moving the town offices. Look how beautiful it ended up and how, we got a nice park. Remember the fights we had with the Bridge and Rail project? Oh, my God, that went on forever. And we were putting everybody out of business, and nobody could be able to live for 3 years. And now we've got a beautiful downtown. And I feel like we have a track record. Take the state out of it. It still has some element of town control out there, because it is not the state that's going to be doing the developing. And I feel like the town does a good job controlling our own business. And so that's why I don't want to say I'm dismissive of it, but I feel like it's not the overwhelming concern that would drive the train off the rails and call for stopping the process.
Do you think the fear is that regardless of what the master plan says, that something different will happen out there?
That is the fear. And I think it's born of, sort of missing information. Like the state says, we don't know how many flights are coming in and out, because people can just, if you fit on the runway, you can just land. The fear is, okay, let's say the maximum, everything's set for maximum hangar space. Well, I think there's fear in the community that means more planes will come in and use the tie-down lot. That the planes that are there will shift to hangars, and then it'll double or whatever the number of flights that are coming in and out. And the state isn't able to say, here's the limit to what this airport can handle, or here's where we would cap it, knowing that this is an airport that's nestled in a community, in a community of homes. That's where the fear is. And I know I've made a lot of enemies today, writing the letter, but there's this sense that the state has a process that's in motion, right? And the citizens don't have a way of doing anything that makes any impact on that process. That may not be true, but that is what people are worried about. So they're gonna find out in 15 years that, there's twice as many planes. They're ready to retire, they wanna sell their house, and nobody wants to buy it.
And how many people take the train today? How many people took the train through Middlebury today? Do you know?
I have no idea.
So how many planes came to the airport today? Don't know that either. How many cars drove down Route 7?
Is there ever
I'm just trying to figure out how that fits in. I mean, I came to the meetings, I lived next to the railroad when it was being done, and moved into East Middlebury when it became available. I just don't know what it is. I mean, I'm wondering, I don't take the train, I take an airplane.
If our room was repeatedly filled with neighbors who were talking about the train, we would be talking about the train, and I would be asking these same questions and making the same suggestions.
There were meetings about the train, because it was a big issue.
I'm communicating what the fear is.
Yeah.
I realize I've pissed off a lot of people.
No, it's not
Right.
that. I feel that anybody that wants to come to the airport and ask about the airport, airplanes, never mind the state, because the state may not know every detail, but I'm there every day. So isn't Bill, because, our families, my family grew up here. It just seems really weird that you would dismiss that whole thing and, go on
We
with what
understand your
people
fear,
say.
too.
I understand.
We understand your fear in the
Right.
constituents.
And again, it's not, I mean, I'm a mile south of the airport. It doesn't
Right.
affect me personally. It doesn't. But these are the fears that people are coming to me with. They're asking for us to advocate and be sure they're a part of the process. They haven't been happy with what has happened yet. Maybe they're big whiners.
Well, no, I'm not
But
saying you
but the
can't.
solution
But
we're
looking for the solution.
Everything and do away with the airport.
It just
That's
seems
what That's what's disheartening
We
for
still
us.
have Judy in the line.
That's the only reason why we came, is because of that letter.
We should probably let her talk because we've let everybody else talk.
We need to move the airport.
We should give her a chance because we've given everyone
I
else a
understand
chance.
that.
Hey, let me, just in the interest of trying to move this forward, Kathleen says Judy Weiger-Grove's hand is up.
Okay, Judy, you're on.
Okay, thanks so much. But there are so many questions, or so many comments. And I apologize, because it's a late hour, and the airport issue is so important to so many people, it has to be put earlier on the agenda. Please.
We'd never get the other items done, Judy.
For one, sorry.
We'd never get the other items done.
I get the whole NIMBY thing. I get it. And I actually live far enough away from the airport that whatever you guys decide isn't going to affect me. But it will affect my neighbors, and it will affect the wildlife, and it will affect the environment, and it will affect And I feel it's not only, you guys have not only left us out of the process, you all have not left, you have all left us out of the process. You have discounted the thoughts and the beliefs. Heather, I can see you, sorry. You have discounted the interest of East Middlebury's residents.
I'm sorry,
It's
Judy, I
well
disagree.
known- Sorry, let me finish. It's well known. East Middlebury is the stepchild of Middlebury. Everybody knows it.
East Middlebury is a village within Middlebury.
I grew up in East.
What?
East Middlebury is a
Say that
village.
again?
East Middlebury is a village within the town of Middlebury.
Andy,
Yeah,
it is not.
that's exactly what it is.
No, it isn't, unless you lived here. So please do not interrupt me. Next, Mike Vincent. I so respect everything you do at this Middlebury Airport. My kid worked for you. Well, he didn't work for you, he worked for Jack Downey. I get the importance. Where is everybody going?
I'm sorry,
It's a
Judy.
long
We're all
meeting,
still
Judy.
here, we just needed to stretch our legs because we're going on.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
I'm sorry,
Hours.
I left my water in the other room and I really needed a
Sorry.
drink.
Okay, sorry.
We're all here.
Single individual in East Middlebury that doesn't appreciate the businesses that occur at the airport. Tree cutting? Are you talking about tree cutting? That's absolutely unacceptable. Sorry, I was gonna use the airport. There's no reason for any further tree cutting anywhere in the proximity of the airport. So, there's been data presented repeatedly about how the airport is vital to the Middlebury community. And I have not yet seen that data.
Okay, Judy, we're coming up on 5 minutes.
Okay, so Okay, so does that give me 4?
You get a minute.
3, 2,
30
1?
seconds.
Okay. And as a result, it's like, where's the airport's evidence that this is so vital to the Middlebury community? Where is it? So, grounded in science, I need to see the data. I need to see the data. Where's the data that they're not going to put in lighting, which will so affect not only the residents of East Middlebury, but it will affect the wildlife. Wildlife does not like lighting in the middle of the night. Why are we considering lighting? Come on.
Can we move on, please?
Yeah, thank you, Judy.
Thank you, Judy. I have one last thing. The Middlebury Airport is not doing any water quality testing. Why not? And mostly because it's not testing for, and please get this accurately, AMPA. They are not testing for a metabolite of glyphosate, which is so harmful. We have a responsibility to do that. Please.
Thank you, Judy.
Please do not accept me as a member of the select board. Please do not, because it will make me just crazy. But please do this.
Okay.
Thanks, Judy.
Thank you, Judy.
So can we,
Ross has a quick comment.
Yeah, I'll keep it short.
that was good, thank you.
You wanted to get to somebody asked about what the bottom line issue here. The bottom line issue is you naturally have two conflicting things. You have a residential neighborhood, which was actually there before the airport, and the airport knew it was there when they moved in and built it, and you have an airport. And the problem is no boundaries that are clear and understood by everyone. We don't know how big and busy the airport's going to get, and we don't know how big and busy the residential, and it's always going to be a conflict. And the state's just about promoting the airport and trying to keep the residents happy. They're not looking at that question. How big should the airport be? And the only place where that question gets answered and should be answered is right here. You are the representatives of the town of Middlebury. You represent everybody. It would be good to figure out, do you want to stop, for example, maybe we should put in zoning so that the residential area doesn't grow anymore. We let the airport just grow as much as it can, and that will help, because there's always going to be conflict, but we have to work to reduce that. And the only way to reduce that is to put limits and figure out, so everyone understands where the limits are. And then we can work with it. But right now, for example, you want to know how it's going to get bigger. You put in lights at night, the lights aren't the issue. The issue is there's going to be more noise, because now we've got nighttime flights coming in. And noise is one of the major issues, okay? So it's all this, it's slow, it's the more you, just so you know, nobody, I've been in most of the conversations in Manila, they do not want to see the airport closed down, they do not want to see the businesses closed down. We're willing to put up with the degradation of our environment and our life living by the airport the way it is. We put up with it. We're happy to put up with it. We know there are businesses and there are people that it means meaningful to them, okay? But at the same time, we don't want to see things change at the airport, so we have to put up with even more harmful and degrading issues that affect the life, quality of life for the residents. And we're not seeing that. There's always this little bit more, and I could go on, but to keep it short, there's a lot of misinformation and exaggeration on both sides. I've heard a lot of it tonight, and I'm going to be speaking with Mike. And so it really comes down to the select board and figuring out how to find the balance and where the maximum growth of the residential area and the airport is so that they can coexist. Because that's the ultimate goal, right? So I'm hoping that you guys can tackle that, because that's what's gonna solve and help reduce. Otherwise, you're gonna have conflicts for as far as you can see. Because the airport's gonna be growing, the residential area there is gonna keep growing, and it's just gonna be a big problem, a headache for a long time. But you can, and with this plan, you've got a chance to start to address that. So thank you.
Well, this plan is for the airport, but yes, the town, in our town planning. Okay, so, does that sentence include what you?
I think so.
So, the fourth one, Kathleen, would be request a better communication and future neighbor participation process be integrated into the airport plans.
And I would potentially add, make an, I don't know how this would happen, so maybe it's not something that can be on the table, but Judy touched on it, Ross touched on it. You know, in addition to there not being a delineated end game for what the airport could look like, there's also no information coming from anywhere that can say, this is how many people fly in. And I think for the people who spend their time at the airport, you're comfortable with that. You probably know each other by sight. You probably know who's coming in. I think for other people, it feels very nebulous, and nobody's able to say, well, we wouldn't expect more than a 15% increase over the next 15 years. Nobody's able to say that. What they're saying is, we don't even have numbers for how many planes are flying. And this is, I'm just repeating what people have said and repeating what I've read.
Expansion, so there's no, what are we gonna expand with?
Right. Well, if the hangars get built and all the tie-down hangars move, could more planes come in and use the tie-downs? And what would that look like?
Yeah, I mean, you don't have parking here, and you build more parking, and more cars are gonna come in.
Spaces aren't used now.
Yeah, they're not all used now.
You're just asking for data that's not, you can't.
Right, and
mean,
I understand that, but if we're
I guess
asking,
you don't understand that, because you keep on asking for data that can't be.
So do you have that sentence?
I mean, it can't be provided. There's no way to provide that
And
data. So where-
then Heather had some addition to the improvements to Airport Road,
Can we,
tied to increased traffic counts and discuss cost sharing between the town and state, something like that. We could polish that up.
Okay. You want to have us swing by to sign it tomorrow?
Sounds good.
Okay. and-
so that means everybody has to swing by tomorrow and
I
sign
can't.
it.
I am out of town from 6:30 to 6.
Okay.
Okay, 10B is about the Act 250 process, and I'm pushing that to a month from now, because we don't know when that'll be. It'd be likely at the earliest to be the end of October, and late in October, so we have some time. And really, that's the environmental side, and we'll send you the criteria so you can look at it and just kind of reflect on what are the things that you would like to ensure are looked at in the permitting. Now, they have to look at every one of them on there, but if you want to make comments on how you feel it would anticipate, we can discuss that. So we're done with the airport for tonight. Thanks for coming. Appreciate it.
And don't forget, we got the open house for the airport. It's the 20th.
got it on the agenda.
20th. You all are invited.
It's a Sunday.
Farhad, check warrants.
Yep. I have done the check review, everything seems good. So I move to approve total expenditures in the amount of $1,664,912.08, consisting of $1,416,920.08 for accounts payable and $247,992 for payroll for the period of August 24, 22 through September 13th, 22.
Seconded?
Moved and seconded. I don't don't know if Heather's trying to, I think she's trying to shut the door.
Oh, okay.
The,
There's a little clip on the bottom of the door.
So check warrants are moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed? Board member concerns. Andy?
I actually think I got a chance to mention all of my current concerns during agenda items.
Okay. Heather?
I'm gonna put an email together. I had some thoughts about the speeding. I'm just gonna put it in an email.
Okay.
I was picking up my daughter on Middle Road today and witnessed some really unsafe behavior when traffic's backed up. It goes along with the speeding, and I think I'm just gonna put it in an at Mom's, yeah. In an
That's a
email.
bad
I can share it with the
instruction.
chief family. Is that okay? Okay. And she can share it with her. I don't wanna take more time.
Okay. Farhad?
I'm all set, thanks.
Dan?
No, nothing.
Lindsay?
Nothing for me.
We do have an executive session, so Lindsay, can you take us
Yeah,
into
I
executive
can,
session?
if I can find it.
I got it right here. You want me
I've
to-
got it. No, it's okay. In accordance with Vermont's open meeting law requirements, I move that the board find that premature general knowledge of the consideration of personnel matters and contracts would clearly place the select board at a substantial disadvantage because the select board risks disclosing its negotiating strategy if it discusses the personnel matters and contracts in public.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 I further move that the board enter into executive session to discuss personnel matters and contracts under the provisions of Title I, Section 313A1 of the Vermont statutes.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We are in executive session, 9:52.